A note to listeners, the following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
But this was on Tuesday, August 27th, 2013, 10:30 in the morning. I met with Jason Dillard at the Oklahoma County Detention Center, and I asked Jason where Molly Miller and Colt Haynes was. Jason replied, stating, "I have no idea." I then asked Jason what he had heard about Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, and he replied, "I just heard that James Conn Knipp was the last person to see them." I then advised to Jason that there have been very many different hearsay reports that put him as the primary suspect of Molly and Colt's disappearance. Jason replied, "I don't know anything about it, but everyone seems to always blame me when something happens."
What he said about the car, the Cadillac, I know that to be an absolute lie, because did he say he put it in the driveway?
He said...
He fixed it and put it in her driveway?
Yep.
Okay. So the last I know about that car, he had taken it to Texas. And I was told, and this was just like recent, very, very recent, like in the last couple of weeks, that so when they got the car back, the back seat had been cut up with a knife, and they did not know why he had done that. I had been told one time that Ryan was just beating himself up. If he had never stopped that police chase, he got dusted out when they turned onto that gravel road off of Highway 76, and it was a gravel road, and he tried to spin them out, was one of those tactical maneuvers.
Yeah, pit maneuver.
Wasn't able to, and so he got dusted out. And I know somebody has told me in the past that he is just beating himself up. If I'd have just kept going, then maybe she'd be here today.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. Hi, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, even if it's one word.
And please subscribe to our website, www.partnersintruecrime. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to check out our weekly promos. We're also now on YouTube at Partners in True Crime. If you subscribe to our website, you'll be getting weekly emails from us and all kinds of promotions and things that we don't advertise on the podcast. The only way we're going to get answers in this case is to go back to the beginning, because many of those early tips and police reports had stories that were consistent and names that have continuously shown up multiple times, like Jason Dillard.
Today, we're going to dive into some of those police reports from the early days of the investigation by the Wilson Police Department. These police reports were actually very thorough and detailed. The officer who took these statements did a very good job.
In some cases, we will be reading directly from some of these police reports, so our listeners can understand why these names have been coming up over the years. We have bleeped out many of the other names that have never been discussed in the media to protect their identities.
Paula is going to join us to go over some of these reports and tips. So let's hear what she has to say. Okay, so we have Paula again on this week, and because we wanted to address some of the things that some of the people have been saying online about the case, and some people's questions and some people's reactions, and also today's episode is we're going over tips. More tips and tips that happened right after the disappearance of Molly and Colt, and then also tips that have come in recently, some of them that Paula is, if she feels comfortable talking about, we'll talk about that. And so Paula, thanks for being on again.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hi.
Let's talk about some of the things that people have been saying online and stuff about the last month of podcasts, because it seems to be like kind of a clear division. I mean, there's more people. I mean, we have tons of supporters on things that we've been talking about and supporting what we're doing and stuff like that. But, there's some outliers there, and we want to address some of that. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been hearing?
Well, I know in the past couple of episodes or so, Jason Dillard's name's been brought up, and there's been some things put out online saying that I misspeaking on some things, or I have it wrong. And so I decided that, okay, I admit when I'm wrong, about things. One of the things that was stated online that I was wrong about was what he's currently in federal prison for. I stated that he was in there for trafficking in fentanyl, when in fact, after I did some research, I found that he's actually in for trafficking in methamphetamine, which is not I don't think it's all in the same category, in my opinion. But what I didn't realize, what he's also in for, is possession of a firearm during a felony.
Well, we have the document of his indictment. Yeah. And it was filed in the court in the Western District of Oklahoma on February 21st, 2023. And it says the United States versus Jason Scott Dillard. I just want to read this so everyone's clear. You can find this. It's public record. He was indicted. The federal grand jury charges count 1, felon in possession of a firearm, and count 2, possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute, and count 3, possession of a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. So the allegations contained in this indictment are hereby realleged and incorporated for the purpose of alleging forfeiture. Upon conviction of any of the offenses of this indictment, Jason Scott Dillard shall forfeit to the United States any and all firearms and ammunition in the commission of this offense. So those are the charges that have been brought against him.
And those are online. You can find them. We found them.
Right. Right. Well, I did want to address that, and wanted to correct my mistake in saying that he was in for fentanyl distribution, when in fact it was just meth, or that's how they put it, that it's just meth. But so also during my research, or just looking around, I had mentioned that he had been in jail in Pauls Valley after he had cut an ankle monitor, and I guess they were on the lookout for him. And he was in Pauls Valley, and he was arrested in Pauls Valley. And I don't know if I just didn't know this, or if I just did not recall that he actually was picked up on new charges when he was arrested, Pauls Valley. And I believe it was 5 counts in Garvin County is where Pauls Valley is. There was 5 counts: trafficking in illegal drugs, possession of a firearm during commission of a felony, unlawful receipt, acquire of proceeds, conspiracy, and possession of a firearm after a former felony conviction. All he pled guilty to. The strange thing I found about that was he got a 25-year suspended sentence, which means I think, and I'm not 100%, that he would be on probation currently for those charges. I've never seen somebody get 25 years suspended sentence. Generally that the person would go to prison with that many charges, But what I also found out, that those charges were filed on April 17th of 2015. And on March, what date was it? I don't have it written down, but in March of 2015, he also was charged in Murray County on drug charges as well. So,
were they intent to distribute again?
I believe.
Or just possession?
I believe it was possession of methamphetamine.
Okay.
And that was in March of 2015, then a month later. And then the charges on that one, or the sentencing on that one, I don't recall, but it was to run concurrent with the Garvin County charges. Yeah. So, in 2015, April the 13th, just before he was arrested in Pauls Valley, on the 17th, he was charged in Oklahoma County with escape from a penitentiary, which would basically be him cutting the ankle monitor, because he is still a resident, I guess you would say, of the Department of Corrections. So anyway, he was charged with that. So anyway, my point is, they want to get technical about, something as small as me speaking about the drug that he is currently in prison for, when in fact that really doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal as to which drug it is, fentanyl or meth.
Mm-hmm. And then when we looked him up and where he's currently at, I guess he has a release date sometime in 2027. So that's what it says on the website, the prison website. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
Well, with these charges, the 5 charges out of Garvin County and a 25-year suspended sentence, like I said, would that put somebody on probation? That doesn't show anything where is a completed case at this time. So it's like, is he going to have to answer for these current charges in Garvin County once he's out, or before he gets out of federal prison? I don't know. Yeah. But I just think it's petty that she wants to get technical about
Well, he's got people who are defending him, whether they're friends or family. And that's fine. Listen, I mean, like I said, we don't know what happened, but his name has come up just like the other names have come up early on in this case, and we have to explore it. I mean, you have to. He's in police reports. I mean, Cindy's got one right here in front of her.
I've got several. I mean, this is the interview that he did with one of the captains of the police department. I'm not going to say who it was, but this was on Tuesday, August 27th, 2013, 10:30 in the morning. I met with Jason Dillard at the Oklahoma County Detention Center, and I asked Jason where Molly Miller and Colt Haynes was. Jason replied, stating, "I have no idea." I then asked Jason what he had heard about Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, and he replied, "I just heard that James Conn Knipp was the last person to see them." I then advised to Jason that there have been very many different hearsay reports that put him as the primary suspect of Molly and Colt's disappearance. Jason replied, "I don't know anything about it, but everyone seems to always blame me when something happens." That's an interesting response.
Yeah.
I asked Jason what he knows or heard about the disappearance of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. Jason replied, "Teens run away all the time, but usually they call home. No one has heard from them, so what do you think happened?" I asked Jason when the last time he saw James Conn Knipp was. Jason replied, "I do not associate with James Conn Knipp, but the last time saw him was February 2012.
Hey, let's stop there right now. Do we know, I mean, is that, as far as I know from all the other reports we heard, does that sound accurate, Paula, that he doesn't associate with James Conn Knipp?
No. And the reason I say that is, and I don't know this to be fact, but there was a police chase that I was told about. I think it was prior to their disappearance, where I had heard that it was Jason and Conn in the car. Now, like I said, nobody was caught. So that's just something that I was told. That was a tip that came in years ago. He may not associate with him. I just really don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
it says here, I mean, if I continue reading on, the officer writes, "I advised to Jason that it has been reported that he and James Conn Knipp have been seen at local teen parties within the last couple of months." So people were reporting that they were seen together at parties. And Jason replied that he and James Conn Knipp, "That's crazy. I've not been to a party since high school. I can't stay in one place for any length of time." That was Jason's response. And then he goes on to say, "I then asked Jason what he knew about the stolen black Cadillac from Hilton, or who Jason out of Nocona, Texas was. I have no idea who that is. The last time I saw that car was after I fixed it for and left it in the driveway. That was the last time I was chased out of there by Heedleton Police Department." I asked Jason if he knew anything about Devin Johnson. Jason stated, "I don't know anything about him. I know who he is." I advised to Jason that I met with Devin Johnson because it was speculated that he picked up Molly Miller and Colt Haynes on July 8th, 2013. Devin Johnson's mother also made a statement claiming that Jason has Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. Jason replied, "It's like I said, people just want to blame me for anything, and I heard somewhere that Devin Johnson did pick them up and took them somewhere south of Nocona, Texas." I asked Jason who he heard that from, and Jason replied, "I don't remember."
Interesting. Well,
Okay, now what he said about the car, the Cadillac, I know that to be an absolute lie, because did he say he put it in the driveway?
He said,
He fixed it and put it in her driveway?
"Yep."
Okay, so the last I know about that car, he had taken it to Texas, and I was told, and this was just like recent, very, very recent, like in the last couple of weeks, that was sent to pick up that car from him because he wouldn't bring it back. And so when they got the car back, the back seat had been cut up with a knife, and they did not know why he had done that. And that was after, I'm not sure when he's saying he fixed the car, but that car, from my understanding, and I have spoke with, I've been to her house, and that car was not, I believe, to my knowledge, it's still in a shed somewhere, and it was still with the seats all tore up. So I don't know what he's referring to there, fixing the cars the last time he saw the car, whatever.
yeah.
Now, I found it interesting that how did he put that? He mentions that Conn, what did he say about Conn in there as far as what he heard about Molly and Colt?
He said
That they went to Texas.
that Devin Johnson picked them up.
Yeah.
That's what Conn had told him?
No, he didn't say anything about Conn. He said that the officer asked Jason if he knew anything about Devin Johnson. Jason stated, "I don't know him, but I know who he is." The officer said to Jason that he had met with Devin Johnson because it was speculated that he picked up Molly and Colt on July 8th, 2013. Devin Johnson's mother also made a statement claiming that Jason has Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. And Jason replied, it's like I said, people just want to blame me for anything, and I heard somewhere that Devin Johnson did pick them up and took them somewhere south of Nocona, Texas.
Okay. I thought earlier in that statement there was something brought up about Con, and he stated something about what he heard Con had said or something to that
No,
effect.
he just said that I just heard that James Con Knipp was the last person to see them.
Okay. That's what I heard. And, it's really funny to me that both of them want to blame Jason Dillard or blame each other. Jason wants to blame Con or say that he heard Con was the last person, and Con has said and made statements to that same effect that Jason, picked them up. And, I spoke with someone the other day about that incident in the Carter County Jail after they listened to the podcast and heard me bring it up. Once they knew that Con was there and they popped the gates, and then Jason had told another inmate to come with him, and they went, and from my understanding, Con was getting the best of Jason Dillard in the beginning when they started this fight, and this other inmate jumped in. And so when asked later why he did that, and he said it's because Con was trying to blame the Molly Miller disappearance on him. And so, which is true. I mean, even Joe Russell told me that Con told him that Jason picked them up. And I was noticing there was a charge on there from Oklahoma County that I was noticing. And the day that me and Misty and Mandy went to speak with Con at his house, just days before that was Labor Day weekend, so it was around September 1st or so. Like on August 27th of 2013, Jason Dillard, along with his girlfriend at the time, they had gotten arrested in Oklahoma City on a stolen motorcycle, if I recall correctly. And so he was in jail at the time that we were there visiting with Con, and we told Con that, did you know Jason's in jail? And he said, no, where? And we said, Oklahoma City. And he said, the son of a bitch gonna roll on me.
That's interesting, because then there's another police report here from August 14th, 2013. So we're looking at a little over a month after they went missing. The officer received a phone call from who stated to me that she has current information on Molly Miller and needed to meet me at the Wilson Black and Gold Casino. Now, that's the casino where there's camera footage of Molly and Colt before they went missing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I asked, this is back to the police report. The officer says, I asked if she could come to the Wilson Police Department. Leah refused. I then met her at the Wilson Black and Gold Casino. Stated to me that she has now heard from multiple sources that Colt Haynes stole Jason Dillard's methamphetamine, so Jason Dillard beat Molly Miller to death. And I asked Leah where she received this information, but she refused to tell me. I was very upset, and I explained that I need to know the source. She then stated that she received the information from.
And then on just before that, in July 27th, his name's all over this other police report. And I'm not going to name the people's names who gave the report, but it's a police report, official police report, that someone contacted the police, said Facebook notifying her situation that Jason Scott Dillard was possibly harboring a juvenile runaway, Molly Miller, and was suspected to be, that's on multiple reports. And so why does his name keep on coming up so early?
And why would Khan say that he would roll on him? About what?
I don't know, but, the deal is we didn't pull Jason Dillard's name out of the hat, and decide to start talking about him. I mean, those reports right there are why his name has been brought up.
Yeah.
We didn't bring him into this.
These aren't
people
tips.
Brought him
These aren't tips that people called you with, because we have plenty of those as well. And his name shows up on there too, as well as some other names, some new names that, that we haven't really talked about. But these are bona fide copies of police reports, timestamp, dated, official. We have the numbers, can even post them, but it's like you said, we're not pulling his name out of the air. And based upon the first thing that Stormy said when she came on the podcast is, we didn't even ask her about Jason Dillard. She just said, I'm convinced that he had something to do with it.
Jesse said the same thing. I mean, he set Jesse
Well, somebody that got in touch with me just the other day after listening to her podcast and then mine, I spoke to them on the phone, and they said he said, listen to her, because everything she said about him is true. And And that person had firsthand knowledge of the things that she claimed that he had done to her and other girls. So, like I said, I'm not looking to just throw him out there willy-nilly for no apparent reason. His name has been brought up in this since the very beginning. So therefore, it's something that is talked about and is still talked about to this day.
Yeah. And then the other thing that was consistent with when we re-looked at all this stuff is that it wasn't just him. There was multiple people involved.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that, I don't think we've talked about, I think we may have hypothesized a little bit about, but there was also a report, a tip that was given to you where Molly, during the car chase, she was all hopped up on drugs and she hurt her head during the car chase and she was seriously injured, and Colt wanted to take her home or get her some medical attention, and Con wouldn't let him. And that was kind of the source of the push and pull. We've heard that story. We've heard the point where Molly was freaked out and was going to call the cops. We've heard that one. All these sound very plausible. And the fact that Colt, in the one statement where you're saying that where Colt had Dillard's drugs, and that was like another source of contention between the two.
And they hung out all the time, according to Jesse, and according to Stormy.
And that one piece of information that Stormy gave us is that when Colt told her to get out of town, right before all this happened, which led Stormy to believe that she would have been there, she would have been Molly. So there's just too much there. And that person that you said you recently, is that the same person that ended up calling the BIA with that information?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the other thing. Like, if you're innocent, okay, and you didn't have anything to do with this, personally, if I had been in that car driving my friends and I got all this happened, right, I would have been out there looking for my friend. Secondly, if the police or the OSBI wanted to speak to me, I would speak to them, right? I mean, if you have nothing to hide, why won't you speak? So there's a police report here on Tuesday, July 30th, 2013. So this is only a few weeks after they went missing. This officer was contacted by David Seals with the OSBI, who notified me that he attempted to speak with James Con Nip regarding the location of missing juvenile Molly Miller. James Con Nip stated that he was not going to speak with anyone unless they speak to his attorney. Why?
I don't know. And I don't even think at that time, he even had a lawyer. I know that I had heard that he had said that he wasn't going to talk without a lawyer. But, like you said, if you have nothing to hide, why do you need a lawyer? Why don't you just tell what you know? I know that I was in a high-speed chase. I was driving the car. I left them out there in the woods, and I don't know what happened to them after that. Or, if he actually knows who picked them up, then tell us, Tell us who really picked them up, if that's the case.
Yeah.
If you had absolutely nothing to do with it, then there's no reason, because there's not a doubt in my mind he knows.
Yeah, he's got to. And I think, part of it is because a lot of these reports and these tips from people who knew all these people and were very, that knew Con Nip, that he was deathly afraid of some people. Mm-hmm. So either he didn't want to divulge that information because he thought something was going to happen to him, which likely it could have. So, like I said, we don't know what happened. We're not saying Con did anything, but his name has come up so many times here, and he probably has information, and he's afraid to talk. Just like all these other people that I can see all these tips. The first thing they say, you're not going to use my name, right? He goes, don't use my name. And because they're deathly afraid of what's going to happen to him, because this is a new name coming up, and I'm going to say his name to you, Paul, but I'm going to bleep it out. And this was there's no date on this one, but I thought it was interesting. It says, I live in Marietta, and I just recently got a new neighbor. Well, he's gone now, but told me that was involved in Molly and Colt's disappearance. But Con was not the leader. Some guy, can't remember his name, but he has something to do with a huge dope cook and dealer and lives out in that area along Hollow and Oswald. And then he mentions that he basically says it's Colby. And he goes, well, she told me that after they lost the cops from the chase, they all got out of the car. Molly was hysterical, saying that she was going to call the cops, and over and over again. And then the main dude looked at Con and said, this isn't going to work. So they started to kill her, and whoever didn't help was next. So that's why Colt was killed, because he protested. She said didn't want to didn't want to, but didn't want to die either. So, he said that he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he goes on to basically saying what we've heard before, how they killed her and disposed of her in the barrels and that kind of much stuff. But said Khan is pretty much scared of the leader and will never turn on him, and that he will take the blame for the guy. That's interesting. I mean, it's dealing with those guys. I can see how that can be plausible. Like, they're just, they're dealing with a lot of meth money, and, it compromises their operation, and they're not going to let two young people compromise their operation.
Right.
And then there's...
What do you know about this person?
I've read that, and I've actually heard his name multiple times in the past, but I don't know where he fits in, and if that statement is true, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it lines up with a lot of the things. I mean, because these are we've heard that story before, but not attaching someone's name, and the fact that he was there and he had to participate because it was like either participate or die. Mm-hmm. Pretty high stakes there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember. Is that an official police report?
No, that's not. That's a tip.
Okay.
That's a tip. It's like, it's about...
Was it I guess it was a tip that came into me.
Yes, it came specifically to you. It's a conversation. It's a transcription of a conversation. I don't know whether you had a phone call or whether it were texts, but it's it's a woman.
Okay.
But she was very scared, says, don't use my name. And, and she names off a bunch of other people too. And she says, I would have authorities check up on these people, because they were making jokes
tell
about
her
it.
that name and we'll bleep it out. But Paula, are any of these the names of the people that scrub their Facebook pages?
Here, this is it's from...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and tell me.
Okay, so she said...
Is the brother of the girl that was killed. Angela.
What girl?
Remember the girl that we had the tip? Remember the young girl was dead. Yes, she died of a drug overdose. I saw her obituary.
But she also said,
what is this dated?
There's no date on it.
There has to be at the end.
No date. It's just a printed transcript. And I mean, she goes on to say that she said she heard these people joking about Molly and Colt. Some of them made jokes about taking people down Long Hollow Road. It says, what happens there. They laughed about it. Also, this guy is one of Khan's best friends.
That information I just looked came to me in 2016.
Okay.
One of those names you mentioned was is Willie Russell's current wife.
And it was that girl who died of a drug overdose. Remember?
Oh, got you. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
It's amazing how it's like the telephone game, where everyone, it's like the first person says the story, and then there's little things that are added or deleted as it's told to someone else. But the core of it seems to be the same.
Well, it does, and it just keeps going back to the beginning and to the same people. The more people hear the things that are talked about, it like triggers a memory, for some people. And so that just brings, about some of the same information, but also people going, why haven't they done anything about this?
Yeah.
Was told this information back in 2013, 2014, whatever, and nobody's done anything. But, somebody said to me the other day, it's just so bizarre to them that, all this information that's out there, and it's like nobody looks into it. Nobody, follows it through to the end. And that, we talked about that long time ago. I never felt good about any tip because it never felt like it was vetted thoroughly to the end.
Yeah.
Where you could actually rule it out or not.
Well, there's also one of these tips here, and I won't read it, but there was someone who reached out to you, and she said, and she had something similar happen to her family member, and, dealing with the drug trade, and a family member died, and she had evidence, and she gave it to the OSBI, and she goes, nothing ever happened. She goes, because they won't do anything because of the level of drug trafficking that's going involved in there, and then they don't know how to combat it, and or they don't want to deal with it.
Right.
But it almost sounded exactly like Molly's and Colt's case, where it's like they had information, they gave it to him, they actually had evidence, and they still didn't pursue it.
Right.
And I just found the one that, remember like a month and a half ago, we found That guy contacted us and told us about had to deal with the death and the information that she gave someone else, which I won't name her name, and he called us, and then he actually called the BIA right after,
Right.
regarding the silos.
Right.
So, and that the date on that is 2019. So you hear the whole conversation. So you already spoke to this woman that he told you about.
And what was her name again? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and she wouldn't go to the BIA, but this person who knew her did.
Right.
Then there's another police report, and this one's dated September of 2013. And it talks about, once again, it's someone, we've talked internally about this person's name, and we know that person, she's talked to you. It's a female, and I'll just tell you, it's information, and also information.
Right.
I asked what he told about the information that he knew had happened. Stated that just to her, he did not know anything about what happened, but emphasized what James Conn Knipp and Colby Barrack are sick-minded individuals who have accessed that kind of stuff, meaning the acid and stuff. I asked why. He stated the use of caustic acid stated is because it's used in oil fields to eat through metal surfaces. I asked if he gave any to James Conn Knipp and Colby Barrack. He said that he does not associate with them because they are way too strange. Does that make sense?
Is this a police report?
It is a police report.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the Wilson Police Department.
Okay. I recall meeting with her and her telling us everything. And, she even showed us on a map where he said that they were. And we have checked out that location. We were not, not successful in finding anything, obviously. But I don't know. I know his name got brought up when she brought it into it, and I know they were together at the time. So I don't know why he would tell her something like that. I even contacted the oil field company that he was working for in Canadian County, Texas. I found out what location he was working on and the company that he worked for, and I contacted them and tried to get information on the chemicals that they had on that location and if any was missing, if they kept inventory of that stuff. And, I think they thought I was a lunatic, but, I wanted to know, I just I knew nobody else was going to follow up on it. And so therefore I was trying to. I really didn't get the answers or any information that we really needed to find out if they did keep inventory of it or if any of it was missing off that location at the time. And she had said that when he goes on days off, that he got home at a certain time, and that particular day that he did not get home until very late because he went to Love County prior to coming home, and they lived up around Oklahoma City. So as far as that goes, that's where if I remember right, I think that's where the acid, the caustic soda, and all that started coming out was after that tip.
Yeah.
There's been really no confirmation of that being used or by anybody that I can think of,
So just for the listeners, if and the ones that the people that have said that were inaccurate information, majority of the stuff we just talked about are in police reports. I think there was only one tip that was given to you that I read, but everything else were in police reports. And I wanted to address something else that someone said that said, how could you say regarding that truth blog, because you didn't read it because you said on the podcast I didn't read it, and that you would know any of the information. And I just want to say that even though you didn't read the truth blog, we gave you the cliff notes.
Because we read it.
We read it. And your friends read it. And they gave you the cliff notes. So you knew it was in the basis of that document.
And there was no reason for Paula to have to subject herself to reading this. Well, she already lived through it.
Yeah.
We talked to Jackie every day. So it's not like she didn't have conversations with him every day.
Right. And because you guys told me, the basis of that or what it basically contained, I got the gist of it. I'm not.
Yeah, not only us.
I figured it out, and I know because there was a collaboration on that blog. I know what it says.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, because I spent hours upon hours talking to one of the authors of that blog.
Exactly.
So I do know without ever looking at it. And that kind of stuff, I just like comments. Unless somebody sends me a comment that I need to respond to, I never see it because I don't read comments. Very rarely do I go through and read comments. It's just, it gives me too much anxiety. People are mean. People that don't have any dog in the fight, they don't have any friends in the fight, have no reason to be as hateful and mean as they are, other than that's just who they are.
Well, they want to insert themselves.
I just avoid.
Yeah. They want to insert themselves to make themselves relevant. And,
I avoid comments unless most people that I know that are good friends that see anything, they send it to me and they're like, you probably need to address this. Same thing with this blog. There's really no reason for me to read it.
No.
And it's not like it's going to change my mind because I already know what I believe in my head. And I still say, I don't know who did this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that Jesse didn't, because I don't know. But I know there's nothing in my head that I can go back to 2013. There's nothing in my head that ever suggested by any tip, by any police report, or anything else that Jesse did this. So therefore, I do have a theory that does not include him, because I have no reason to include him. I have no information that tells me to include Jesse in the theory. You know what? Am I making sense?
You are. And like I said, we went back over again all these police reports, and Jesse's name's not in any of it. In fact, the basis of your theory is based upon the information that are in those early police reports.
Exactly.
So it's not like you came up with this information. This is their investigation. And
Right.
you have the...
Which is what brings us back to this thing that happens when a victim goes missing. There's no resolution. Law enforcement just doesn't follow through with a lot of things in the beginning, and then you're in the position that you're in, right? So now all you have to base a lot of this information on are police reports, statements, things that have already been told to law enforcement. You're just doing your own research on what's already out there. You're not coming up with any new information on your own, or, pointing the finger at people who aren't already on the record for saying something or seeing something or witnessing something. That's what people, I don't think, understand. Victims don't have a lot of recourse when a family member goes missing or is murdered. We just got off the phone with Crime Victims United. My friend Nina Salerno is the prosecuting district attorney in the Sacramento area, and she is the former president of Crime Victims United. And it's an organization that is specifically for victims of crimes or missing people, such as yourself. And they basically do what you do. They reinvestigate things. They help victims, navigate the system. And it's important to stay in the media. It's important to talk about these things. It's important to have the podcast just to keep the case alive until something is done, until something is found.
Yeah, because the only time the news reports this is usually on the anniversary. And I want to make one other statement here, is that a lot of times we were talking poorly about the early investigation stuff. There was one guy, all these reports are written by the same guy, and he was with the Wilson Police Department. I'm not going to mention his name, but shortly thereafter, he left the department and left the state.
He was very thorough.
Well, I'll say his name is Ryan Parsley.
Okay.
And he did do, we gave it to him in the beginning. Me and my cousin and Mandy, we went there and we caused him a lot of grief because he was kind of arrogant about it, just to be quite honest about it. And I am going to say that man did do his due diligence in documenting every interview he did. And I was just very impressed when I got the Wilson PD's file on this case. I was very impressed at what Ryan had done.
Well, yeah.
And yes,
he
did.
He is very thorough. And if you look at that, and then you look at Love County Sheriff's Department, when Harvey Stewart writes in pencil that you can barely read, or Joe Russell writes in pencil that's misspelled and you can barely understand what the police report is. It's like a totally different world, because Parsley was very thorough and very objective, and he just told the facts.
Yeah, he just reported what was told.
Reported what was told to him.
And he questioned the right people.
He wasn't injecting his own personal opinion into it as they did at the Love County Sheriff's Department.
I was told one time, And it just makes me, the whole thing is sad. It is sad. And I know a lot of people who have like complete regrets about things that they could have done at that moment in the beginning and didn't. I had been told one time that Ryan was just beating himself up. If he had never stopped that police chase, he got dusted out when they turned onto that gravel road off of Highway 76. And it was a gravel road, and he tried to spin them out, was one of those tactical maneuvers.
Yeah, pit maneuver.
Wasn't able to. And so he got dusted out. And I know somebody has told me in the past that he is just beating himself up. If I'd have just kept going, then maybe she'd be here today. Everybody, that town is so small that everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows Molly was being a little turd. And, nobody believed, I don't think, was taking it very seriously in those very early days, how serious this was, So just a very sad deal.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have a lot of regrets, and it's awful, isn't it?
It's not his fault.
Nope.
I mean, he did his job. You can see it in these police reports. He did an excellent job.
He did, and I'm going to own it. I was tough on him even after he left Wilson, and I think he went to Texas. And I don't even know if he's still in law enforcement, but man, I did not like him. I did not like him. I was so mad at him. I didn't feel like he did everything he needed to do. But I will say, when I did the FOIA request and requested those police reports, I had a different take on him. And, so grateful to what he did get,
Yeah.
I mean, he got the police report of, he got the statement from Joe,
Mm-hmm.
Had he not got that statement from Joe, we wouldn't have a statement of Joe's.
Yep.
And what Joe had to say about Con. And, so there's just things in there that I didn't know, and so grateful to him for doing his job. And he did do his job.
Do we know why he left? Do you think he got pressure because he actually was looking into this too deeply? That's why he had to leave?
I really don't know. I can speculate, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't really know why he left. I know, people were saying that, he just felt so bad. He just felt like he had to go,
I could see that. I could see how this could really mess with your head. I mean, we've been dealing with this for 4 or 5 years now, and I can't imagine working in law enforcement and trying to do your job and trying to find answers, and just it's like peeling an onion. One thing leads to another, and it's just endless. I mean, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. And if you're a good cop, because we've seen it on other investigations, some cops have even who've felt guilt-ridden because they felt like they haven't done enough. They've taken their own lives.
Yeah.
So I can understand. It's an enormous amount of pressure to have on yourself. And if you thought that maybe if I just, like you said, if I did that pit maneuver a little bit better and I'd flipped that car so they wouldn't be able to go anywhere, and I got to stop that chase if I just kept on going. I mean, I can see how that could be a huge burden on them. And and if, Ryan, if you're listening, I mean, like I said, you did a great job.
Yeah.
You really did. And amongst all of the other situation that you were dealing with in that area, John Denny, I mean, he did a great job too. He came out and he was an advocate. So the law enforcement, there's a lot of great law enforcement. There's only a few bad apples, but the bad apples sometimes stick out further than the good guys. And it's sad.
Yeah.
It is sad. And that is the absolute truth. I mean, but through it all, we have met some really great people in law enforcement that have, if they could do more, they would, but their hands are tied.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I mean, Ronnie, like I said, we got to revisit a lot of Ronnie Hampton's work too, and even other people that he interviewed and stuff like that. And so it's all in black and white, and the proof is in the pudding. The people that actually did their jobs and did it right, that's why we have the record we do. And thank God we have the record we do, because at least, and I know that the BI has all these files, they have all these reports, and like you said before, that they basically said, we pretty much know what happened. We just got to prove it.
That's what they told the Marietta Monitor, the paper. That was a quote in their paper that he, when they called Vincent with the BIA, He quoted that, and I think that's pretty much what he said.
Mhm.
Was, we know what happened, now we just got to prove it.
I think this was a good exercise. It was a good exercise for us. It makes us do our due diligence because, a lot of times we forget things. We've pored over these documents numerous times, but it's good to refresh and look at these things from more of a 10,000-foot view because you never know. I mean, and also everybody who's listening, these people, like I said, you're still getting people reaching out to you. You have people reached out to you since we started the podcast back up. Some of the information, people telling you they want to talk. They want to tell you. They want to at least reassure you that you're going in the right direction.
So before we go, someone that did reach out to me just recently to say, kind of give they knew the people on Long Hollow Road. They knew them well, very, very well. This person did. And they wanted to let, kind of give the dynamics of what was going on in 2013 down there on Long Hollow Road, and kind of tell the people and how things operated down there and who was the one to be listened to, that kind of thing. There was something that I was going somewhere with this, and I just kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, I think you want to say something, but you don't sure if you want to. I think that's what it is, because you don't want to reveal this person. I understand that. Because you've already told me this.
Well,
That's okay.
We're on the right track. And, I asked them, I said, because everybody, is Jesse Haynes involved? And they said, absolutely not. There's no way. So that, and y'all have asked the BIA the same question. Are we on the right track? Are we, do we need to veer off in another direction? They're like, no. You're doing everything right. So
I mean, they're not encouraging us, but they're not discouraging us.
Exactly.
And that's what they need to do.
I don't feel bad about not jumping on this Jesse bandwagon because I just can't. I can't wrap my mind around that coming out at this time, and believing it.
Like I said, thousands of pages in here. No one is going to hide. Like, if they knew that Jesse did this back in the day, like, there's no one that would have just protected him for 10 years.
Yeah.
This would have been out day one. I mean, I just don't see how anyone would have covered for him. Jason Dillard, Con covering for each other, that makes sense. I could see that. They're running in the same circles. I just think that, Jason Dillard's supposed to be a snitch. Why wouldn't he just say it?
He didn't have involvement, or knowledge. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't have an answer.
Yeah. But it wasn't just one person.
No.
That much, based upon all the information we've gone over and all the police reports, and even that person that you recently spoke to as well said it wasn't just one person.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just don't know why people at this point, 10 years later, are still protecting them, because there's a bunch of people that know what happened. I don't know how they live with themselves. I really don't. I mean, how do you pretend that it didn't happen if you know it happened, or you heard, or you saw?
They're scared. And the people that did it now have a lot to lose. Some of them have moved on. Some of them had families. Some of them have moved out of the area. We know for a fact.
But it would be horrible to live in a world where you're afraid to tell the truth.
Well, it's self-preservation.
It is, for sure.
And based upon some of these reports that we read, it's like Khan's trying to be self-preserved too. Like I said, when you told us that meeting you had with him and he was tearing up when you were kind of drilling him with questions, and you almost had him talking to you, and that was telling.
It is, and I think about that all the time. It's like, he still has that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's been almost 11 years, but he could still. I think I told y'all this many years ago when we first met. I didn't believe that he actually did anything to them, and I still believe that. And some people that know him are like, you're crazy. He's very much capable of it, but I just don't see it. And I know as a kid, and he was a child, even at 21, 22 years old, he's still a child, got that immaturity level going, get out there playing Dukes of Hazzard and that type of thing. I do not believe that he ever intended for any of that to happen. I've said that before. I don't believe that's what he intended. The end goal was Molly and Colt were going to be dead by morning. Do you understand where I'm going?
Yeah.
And so I think what happened, other people got involved because he was being irresponsible, childlike, left them out in the woods, act like it was a game, and that kind of thing. That's how I look at it, that he just left them out there thinking, this is a game, I'll go get them tomorrow, they'll be fine. And I think that when all of that went down, I don't think when they went back out there, I don't think what happened was intended to happen.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for me to articulate what I'm trying to say, but I just don't feel like that he intended for any of this to happen. I do think he has a conscience, and I think that he really wanted to say what he knew that day. And, he still can. Yeah, I mean, after this time and his what involvement he does have in it, which it will be some, then I think he will spend a little time in prison, but it could be worse if he doesn't come forward and they have to come and get him.
Yeah.
Do you understand where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Well, anybody who's out there that is listening, and they probably are, who was involved in this, just remember, first person that comes in gets the deal. That's usually the case. So
right.
if you know something and you were involved and you saw something, because we know that since there was multiple people and we saw it in some of those tips where they're afraid of the people above them that were there. So it's almost like they don't want to get hurt. They don't want anything to happen to their families. And I understand that. But what if it was your family? What would you do?
Exactly.
All right, Paula. Thank you.
Well,
thank you, guys.
All righty.
I appreciate everything you do.
Yes.
oh, thank you, Paula.
You keep on going. Stay strong. If you have any information regarding the case, please contact the BIA at www.bia.gov/BIA/BIA/missing-murder-unit.
You can also call their hotline with tips at 1-833-560-2065 and email them directly at ojs_mmu@bia.gov.
And if you want to text them with a tip, text keyword BIA-MMU and send your tip to 847-411.
Check the Partners in True Crime website for this and any additional information.
If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.
If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and listen to Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller.